Today we're going to be talking about the Barrel and Hatchet and Roscoe K9 collaboration barrel. Let's go ahead and roll the intro. Hey guys, thanks for checking out another Hatchet Cast episode. And today we have a very special topic. We're going to be talking about the Barrel and Hatchet Roscoe K9 collaboration barrel. Before we get started, make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe button. And also, if you get something out of any of our videos, a great way to help out the channel is share that video with a family member or a friend and see if they get something out of it. As usual, make sure you go ahead and comment below if you have any questions about the barrel, or once you get the barrel, tell us your experiences. You can comment below. It really does help out the community.
What is everyone's #1 question when it comes to a barrel? How accurate is it? So I say we jump out on the range and we go do this.
Here, this is how I'm just gonna hold it like that. Huh?
100 plus degrees. Barrel is now how many rounds into it? 40 rounds or so into it.
Yep. That rubber's hot.
Dude, that rubber is...
You want here? I'm gonna grab some water to pour on that rubber.
The ground is so hot, like it's burning my skin. It is brutal. Mo better.
Mo better? Nice.
Mo better.
Feel good?
Yeah, that's way better. Okay, so obviously this was A1.
Wait, so one of the things you were talking about is, first off, I wanted you to talk about your conditions.
Correct. This test here, just to throw that out there, this is in more of an extreme environment. We're 100 plus heat index, I think 107 as far as what the heat index is, and we did not stop in between. The only time that we stopped in between these rounds were to reload a new mag in and to reacquire the target. So there was no letting the barrel cool down. So we wanted to put the barrel through its heat paces. So I actually had shot already 10 to 15 rounds through it, heating the barrel up, and then shot the groups. Did not allow the barrel to cool down. So really putting it through kind of more of an extreme when it comes to heat cycle on the barrel. Of course, we'll do another test with this where we're allowing the barrel to cool down in between groups. So we'll do more of a controlled environment where we're not dealing with the heats. We'll shoot it earlier in the morning, as we shoot it earlier in the morning, and then also allow the barrel to cool down. So a couple of things that I'm looking for out of this. This is typical of A1. Actually, I've seen a lot worse of A1. So that's very consistent with A1.
A1, by the way, is that's the Army and their military's round that they use currently. Yes. So it's super hot.
I've seen at 100 yards, it's really, really hot, but it's super inconsistent. I've seen at 100 yards with this round just literally missing entire targets, you know, so. 77, I mean, that's open tip. That's pretty acceptable. 55 AAC. I mean, all of these are, like I said, once again, these are just regular production rounds out of this stuff, and
with a super hot barrel.
Yeah. So as far as an extreme test when it comes to heat, and then this was our best quality ammo. Our two best quality ammos, what we would typically consider the best, would have been our 77 open tip and then our 77 Sierra Match King. We were already 60 plus rounds deep into this thing, being that hot, and to keep this type of group of, you know, roughly, you know, 1.5 inches, you know, maybe 2 inches from extreme to extreme, you know, maybe one of these are me as far as calling that, and the same thing over here, you know. That's very acceptable, what I look for in a barrel that's really hot.
All right, so right now we're going to be doing the control test where I'm going to be shooting at 100 yards, and I have 77 grain AAC. These are Hornady projectiles, Sierra Match King. So I'm going to go ahead and fire these rounds. It's be about 10 to 12 rounds, and we'll see what we get. We're going to let the gun cool down. I actually brought a battery powered fan to kind of help cool the barrel down, so that way it's not getting super hot like it was on the heat test. So, all right, let's go ahead and do it. All right, guys, so I've got the group here, literally a sub MOA group. So these are me, probably also when the barrel is heating up. I'm not looking for a center direct hit, obviously, because I'm not zeroed for 77 Hornady. I just want to see how the rounds are grouping with that type of projectile. So you can see right here, literally the size of my finger. So sub MOA group with 77 Hornady Sierra Match King. All right, so I've had the fan cool down the gun, and the whole purpose of cooling down the barrel every time is to kind of keep it somewhat controlled. It's not fair to be able to run different types of projectiles when the barrel's super hot. So on the heat test, we were trying to achieve to see, with the barrel very, very hot, how big would the groups open up. With a lot of barrels, we see that they open up quite a bit, but the control for this is we want to try to keep the barrel at the same temperature for every type of round that we're putting through it. So this is going to be 77 grain OTM, and this is from AAC. Where Roy and I see this barrel, and where we probably are going to use it in this type of application, is going to be for almost a general purpose role with a heavier side on accuracy, and also the ability to stabilize rounds over distance. So there are some people that will use it maybe in an SPR role, but one of the things that we are really loving out of this barrel is it is such a general purpose type barrel that gives you the ability to stretch out over distance. And man, like, obviously I got a flyer right there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I think it was actually, yeah, 10 rounds there. So 77 ACC. All right, so the next thing I got here is a lighter grain match grade ammo. This is Hornady Boat Tail Hollow Point 68 grain, and this is actually loaded by Frontier. So let's give it a shot. I don't have very many of these rounds. I think I have like 5 or 6, so I'm going to be really good with my presses. All right, so here we go. 68 grains, not 69, I wrote 69. 68 grain, go to hollow point, just about an inch to just under an inch. So almost an inch. I would say a solid inch, but yeah, that is Frontier load. All right, guys, so now we're going to be doing the rounds that honestly really matter, in my opinion, and that is going to be our standard 55 grain and 62 grain type ammos. Those ball ammos that are very common, everybody's got them, and most likely what you're probably going to be shooting most of the time. So I've got AAC, 55 grain. The other one I'll be shooting next will also be 55 grain, but from here on out, I'll be shooting standard ball. So here we go. So I've got an inch group, but look at how tight a lot of these rounds are. This is 55 grain. So this is gonna be your more common round that you're gonna have out there. We're gonna be doing another 55 grain. That's gonna be the Winchester White Box next, the M193. This is the AAC load, 55 grain. The other one also is we're gonna check M855, which is gonna be our green tip. Now understand, this is going to be like a mil surplus green tip. So when you have a green tip that is like privately manufactured just to the mil spec, most of the time is going to have a better consistency versus a standard like mill dump frickin' surplus M855s. And then just for craps and giggles, we'll do M855A1. I'm pretty sure that's going to be an abysmal group just because A1 is it's such a hot load and it's going to be a little all over the place, a little inconsistent. All right, so now I'm going to be running M855 62 grain green tip. This is a surplus lot. So just FYI, who knows, it's going to be probably pretty unpredictable, but we'll see how it goes. All right, so here we go. We got the M855 grain. This is about 1.5 inches, what we're looking at for a group. This is what I was talking about, the inconsistencies. You got 2 flyers, and that's where you have, whenever you're shooting that, whatever load you're running, whenever you have those strong flyers, and then it's like, hey, I knew that shot felt good. That's what I'm talking about when you have that inconsistency in the load. So obviously some inconsistent load here, but the general group of the M855 green tip is, which is a surplus loadout, not a civilian manufacturer loadout, is pretty decent actually. I was expecting a lot worse. So we're gonna go ahead and do the Winchester white box next, and that's the M193 55 grain. I did this a little bit out of order, but we're gonna go ahead and run that next. All right, guys. So I got this is the M193 this is the M193 Winchester white box 55 grain 5.56. All right, guys, so about 1.5 inches, I'd say about just over 1.25 inches, maybe about 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches. But M193 55 grain, so really good results out of that, to be honest. And this is just your standard ball ammo, guys. So obviously we expect to see more match grade type accuracy out of match grade ammunition. But when you have this type of performance with a standard ball round, it's always encouraging. So now we're going to do the Mystery 5.56 55 grain. I don't know where I got this. I got it given to me by a buddy named Bill. He just said it's 55 grain. I can't remember the brand, so we're going to see how that goes. All right, so I got the Mystery M855 55 grain. Don't know the manufacturer, but we're going to send it and see how it groups. So here we go. This is the Mystery 55 grain. Pretty flipping good, dude. And some of these flyers were honestly me throwing those. So this is the 55 grain. So like the biggest thing that we are super happy about is the fact that it's accurizing standard ball loads that you would see pretty consistently that's available for purchase. So the fighting load, and it is doing a great job of grouping that. So now we're gonna go with a wild one. We're gonna go with 5.56 frange. This is just a frangible ammo, and just for the heck of it, and we're gonna see how that groups. Usually, typically, historically, frange is absolutely atrocious when it comes to accuracy, but what the heck, we're gonna try it. All right, we're running 5.56 frangible. This is frangible. I'm expecting the group to be atrocious. Most barrels don't do a great job of grouping this very well, unless it's like Colt or something crazy. But we'll see. Here we go. All right, guys, so here we go. Got the frange. Actually pretty decent. I'm kind of surprised. It's about inch and I'd say about a 2-inch group. But obviously got 2 flyers down here. Just shows the inconsistency of frange. Now we're going to go to the very last one, which is the M855A1. I'm expecting really bad accuracy out of this. I have never seen a barrel ever accurize this type of ammo, except for the LMT barrels and the old the Colt barrels. So like all the mill stuff. So it's pretty well known. M855A1 is really hot, very inconsistent, and hard to group, but we'll see. All right, guys, so let me talk to you real quick about M855A1. M855A1 is a really interesting round, and it actually has no lead in the projectile. So what they did is it's copper and steel, so a steel core, but it also has a steel tip. And it's interesting because this tip actually goes inside, it almost looks like a T. Like if you look at the actual cutout of it, it looks like a T. So there is copper around this. It's a nasty round. It is not armor piercing, like in terms of plates. It will not, it takes multiple hits to be able to go through ceramics. But it is a nasty round. Actually, if you shoot like steel targets with this thing, it will take a nasty divot out of it. This type of round though is extremely brutal. It has one job, and that job is to penetrate and rip things apart. We've actually used this for hog hunting, and before we've actually tried using like 55 grain M193, and we've had a hog, like a 300-pound hog. It took like 30 rounds to get that thing to drop because we didn't do headshot because it was like running and going crazy. But I remember I saw a hog, it was about 250 pounds with a Mark 18, so it's got shorter barrel, less velocity, but I was using this round and it dropped it in one hit. Like it dropped that thing. Now I had to go over and put 2 rounds in it to finish it off. But the fact of the matter is there's enough energy coming off the end of this thing that it dropped that pig where it stood. So pretty wild, but not the best in terms of accuracy. So we're gonna see how this thing does with this barrel. All right, here we go, M855A1. All right, so we're gonna see how the A1 did. I'm not gonna lie, it looked actually pretty decent. I've seen before where there's like a 6 to 7 inch group when it comes to A1 out of different barrels. And so LMT has been the only one I've seen that can even somewhat group it. Now I did have a couple of flyers, and I will say those are most likely me, but let's see here. So I'm honestly, a 2-inch group with A1 is actually pretty darn good. Like there's a couple of flyers. One of these I know was me, just rushing it. But to be honest, like a 2.5 to 3 inch group inside of this, like I said, A1's a very challenging round to group. It can actually group it is impressive. So kind of going to a recap, we've got M855A1, you got your 69 grain Frontier. We've got our mystery round, whatever that is. I got to figure out what manufacturer that is. That group pretty decent. Frangible, which is literally crayon bullets. 55 grain AAC, which AAC 55 grain in other barrels, we've had terrible luck. Like it's like a minute a man. It's a terrible accuracy, very inconsistent, and it was able to consistently group that. M193 Winchester white box, 77 grain OTM. Now this is 10-12 rounds. 77 Sierra Match King, M855 green tip. What that shows me, guys, is that it is able to group a ton of different ammo. And that's the type of things that we're looking for in a barrel is the diverse amount of ammo, or the diversity in ammo that it likes to eat. Because that gives me, as a shooter, it gives me options. If I'm only able to buy whatever's on sale, whatever I can get a deal on, it gives me a lot of comfort to know that that barrel that I have can group it, you know what I'm saying? So it's not forcing you to buy only a certain brand of ammo or a certain weight of ammo that is very specific. It only likes these few. And we've experienced this not just with also this barrel, but we've experienced that with their SPR barrels, the 14.5 barrels, like Roscoe. I don't know what they're doing, but they're making barrels that can literally eat most projectiles, which is not a normal thing. The fact that it can group so many different types of projectile types. So anyways, yeah, pretty wild. So I'm gonna go ahead and hand it back to Eric and Roy, who's back at the studio, and thanks for joining us on the range for that torture test. So it's back to you guys.
Welcome back to the studio. We're gonna be covering the specs.
Right.
All right, so let's just talk about this barrel. So the K9 series, if you're not familiar with it, one of the big things that drew us to it, Eric and I, is the profile of the barrel. So it's a continuous profile with the tapering off towards the end of the muzzle. What's really nice about that let's just grab this thing out here, is it allows the barrel to be heavier profile where we need it to be, okay, back here more towards the chamber, and allows it to drop some of that weight more towards the muzzle of the gun where we don't have that really heavy feeling on the end of the gun, especially when we're running suppressors. So it's a really, really nice taper that gives you a good balance between being able to maintain the heat in the barrel as we build up after multiple shots, and then without being entirely too heavy out towards the muzzle. So it's their K9 series, which they run this continuous taper to it. It's 416R stainless, okay, 1 in 7 twists, 5.56 chambering in it. And then probably the coolest factor is out of it, instead of being a mid-length gas system, which we tend to find quite often in 16-inch barrels, is this is a intermediate length gas system, okay? So which is a little bit longer than mid-length, but not quite as long as a rifle length. We've seen rifle length barrels before in the past on a 16-inch gun. The problem is you start to cut way down on that dwell time, so you don't have a lot of back pressure buildup, all right? With the intermediate, it's like a perfect balance between, between the two. So mid-length is almost a little bit too much. More and more of us, as attainable as suppressors are nowadays, most people are shooting with suppressors. They're easier to get. The technology in them are better. The wait times are down, so more people are purchasing suppressor every day. Having something with that little bit less dwell time to create that additional back pressure, like the intermediate link gas system does, is really, really nice.
Yeah. What's our twist rate?
So it's a 1 in 7 twist. 1 in 7 twist on it. The other thing that I actually like about this barrel, straight off the factory, one of the things that Roscoe does, and it pairs quite well if you purchase their gas block, is they actually pre-dimple for your set screw. So Roscoe's really known for doing that. I know some people will want to do it pinned. If you want to pin it, by all means, there's definitely manufacturers that can do it, but at least you have a dimple, all right? That's one of the things that I look for, and most of the time when a manufacturer offers a barrel that's pre-dimpled, I typically will pair it up with their gas block because they're dimpling it to the specs on their gas block. So I definitely highly suggest that you pick up a gas block along with this barrel, but that is really nice. Gas port size is really optimized for running suppressed, but it still is very reliable for running unsuppressed. We haven't experienced any issues whatsoever when it comes to running this barrel unsuppressed or suppressed. It's been a really, really nice soft shooter.
Whenever they do offer the barrel, they're going to offer it in multiple options. So obviously you can just buy the barrel itself. It will have to come with the gas tube because the gas tube is proprietary to the barrel, but you can also get it with their sauce pack, which is going to have the gas block and the bolt as well. So if you want to have a bolt that matches up very, very well with the breech of that barrel, what are some of the things that are important with that matchup with the bolt versus the breech of the barrel, like versus just buying a random one and throwing it in there?
With modern machining, we typically don't experience a whole lot of head spacing issues. There are some, inadequate or, lesser quality manufacturers where they don't do a really, really good job of quality control. They're just trying to mass produce, so we do sometimes end up with head spacing issues there. But that you have no doubt now. Okay, so like no doubt whatsoever, we're dealing with a manufacturer that manufactured the bolt to the barrel itself, to that receiver extension on it, so you're definitely not going to have any issues with head spacing. But the other thing about it is having something that's kind of paired together like that. You're typically going to have a really efficient system, especially if you're buying the entire package. Okay, so we're buying their bolt carrier group and the barrel together. We're not going to usually find where if you're pairing these up with, manufacturer A and manufacturer B, well, they have two slightly different tolerances on their, their machining. So you may end up with a bolt carrier that is either less efficient sometimes or even more efficient, where meaning like when we're shooting it suppressed, I may actually have too much gas coming back. So those two being paired together make for a really, really nice combo especially when it comes to shooting suppressed. So you can kind of really not have to deal with running an excessive amount of mass on the backside, meaning heavier buffer weights. It's really simple to tune to it. So.
Yeah, I know that one of the things that we also are big on was that profile was having that continuous taper when it comes to heat. You kind of mentioned it a little bit that it will help with heat, but what does heat do for that rifle as you have a higher string of fire? What does that impact? How can
we're going to start to naturally affect the harmonics of the barrel as we start to produce that heat. We get possibly a little bit more whip in the barrel because the barrel does flex, so that's the whole harmonic side of it. So as we increase that heat, that's going to start to really affect that. But the other thing is the additional heat built back up at the chamber, and that's the nice thing about the continuous profile, where it's nice and heavy and thick on the backside. So we do that thick part of the barrel on the backside, that heavier profile allows for the heat to be across a larger surface. All right, so we're not going to have the heat into the chamber, which the more heat that comes back into the chamber, you're gonna experience, not necessarily, I want to say rounds cooking off, but you may have a higher level of deviation in your velocity. Okay?
Right.
So we start to increase that heat back at the chamber. So.
Yeah. So that velocity being changing is going to affect, what my dope is going to be as I start stretching out to distance and stuff like that, where now I'm having to hold a little bit more for my holds, or dial a little bit more mils or MOA, because that round is, or that barrel is heating up. So trying to mitigate that and keep things as consistent as possible is nice with that thicker profile barrel.
Yeah, and they didn't taper it so much on the front side up towards the muzzle, where I've seen some manufacturers do this before in the past, where they didn't necessarily get it right. They tried to take off too much. They went, once they got past the gas journal, they really tapered it down pretty extreme, which creates a lot of kind of weird harmonics basically in the front of the barrel, where the barrel's kind of very stiff towards here, but then the front side has a little bit more flex to it. So they did a really nice balance. So we got a little bit of a step down from the gas journal, not a lot, but just enough, and then they obviously add a nice match grade crown to it.
So one of the things we get a lot of questions on is, hey, why go with a 416 stainless versus running chrome line? What are your thoughts on that, as far as one versus the other?
When barrel manufacturing, there wasn't a whole lot of manufacturers to necessarily choose from. Nowadays, there's quite a bit of companies out there, and different types of coatings that they use: melanite, salt bath nitrate, just a bunch of different types of stuff as far as physically coating barrels now. You really, if you wanted a barrel that lasted for a really long time and got a lot of rounds out of it, you went traditional chrome line, cold hammer forged.
Right.
That was like the way to go. And chrome line cold hammer forged barrels are still great. And some manufacturers that build them, they also happen to be relatively very accurate barrels too. But the nice thing about a 416 barrel, that's a material that has been used in competition shooting guns forever. It's a material that's known for accuracy, and it's also a material that's also known for accuracy across, generally speaking, a more broad range of ammo. It's not necessarily going to be quite as picky. Longevity wise goes, we're not experiencing where you have something like in a 4150 or 4140 type chromoly barrel, where you start to experience sometimes like a barrel not lasting as long, where it's a softer material, wears out. 416 is kind of like in that medium, where it's still hard enough to maintain accuracy, but then also maintain longevity for reliability.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing also is going to go back to price. That's something that we hear a lot, is like, well, I'd like that, get that barrel, but it's just too expensive. So now you've got a very affordable barrel that gives you something that's very effective without having to go, sacrifice a lot of money into a barrel. And also, it's as far as like your price versus your longevity is actually getting pretty good. So like, it's a very good even balance. Yeah,
I mean, if you are a shooter that spends quite a time behind a gun, you got to look at it as a barrel almost being a disposable item.
Yeah.
To a certain extent. So if and we know that you guys get out there and train quite often. So there's a good possibility there's a lot of you out there that have physically wore barrels out before in the past. That is a thing. These parts that are inside the guns, they are wearable items. They are disposable items. They're going to wear over at some point in time. There is no end-all be-all that you're going to have a barrel that's a buy once, cry once. It's going to last you forever.
Yeah.
Okay. But having a barrel that gives you, you know, a relatively very large high round count, more than what probably most users are probably ever going to put through their gun is very satisfying. And one of the things that are obviously, once again, I keep going back to the profile, but if we can mitigate that heat across the surface and spread that heat out as much as we possibly can with the profile of that barrel, that's going to add in that longevity also, because heat is the ultimate killer. We start to build up a lot of heat at the chamber, and we build up a lot of heat at the end of the muzzle. Okay?
Right.
So when you're looking for erosion, you're going to start to see erosion at the chamber, and then you'll see erosion down at the muzzle is where you're going to find it. Typically, the middle of the barrel is relatively very good. You may have some erosion around the gas port,
Right.
sometimes depending on the manufacturer and how good their quality is in it. But if we can spread that heat across that larger surface, like I said, keep going back to the contour. But for us, one of the things that we've always done, I've done this for years, is I've taken SPR profile barrels and chopped them down, like Mark 12 type profile barrels, and chopped them down to shorter lengths. For instance, there was a company that I was purchasing 18-inch barrels, 18.5-inch barrels from, that they ran a mid-length gas system on for quite some time, and chopping those down to 14.5 and pinning and weld them, just so I can get that heavier contour profile,
Right.
that can really have a solid harmonics to it as far as for accuracy, but spreading that heat out across. And it's really nice now that a company like Roscoe Manufacturing has came out with their K9 series of barrels, and it's one of the reasons why we wanted to team up with them. This is a barrel profile that was more along the lines of you almost had to go to a custom company to build you that, to spin you up that barrel to get something like this. Now Roscoe is obviously offering that to the masses at an affordable price, which is really cool.
I think one of the things when they approached us, we were talking about it for a while, of like, oh, well, should we do this? And we've already run Roscoe barrels in the past, so we already had a very good taste in our mouth with Roscoe as a company. They actually like legit care about their product, and they train, and they're shooters.
So
they are shooters, and so like what ran through our minds was obviously accuracy when it came to multiple different rounds. Like, how many different rounds can this barrel accurize? Not if it's a barrel that only likes like 2 different rounds, and it's not really a very broad breadth of what we can put through this. So we wanted to have accuracy with a ton of different brands of ammo. The other thing also we were looking for was gassing, so how well the gun was tuned and how well was it a correct port size, was the intermediate going to be reliable enough? And so we did everything from 223, 55 grain, M62, M855, like every single type, frange. We ran frange through it. And it was grouping, or not only grouping, but running reliably, and super soft suppressed and unsuppressed, which is like, I think is a testament to the intermediate gas length system.
Very easy to tune, not having to spend a lot of time out there. We typically will run the A5 type buffer system quite often. I just happen to like the length of it, and I like the feel of it, and I like the additional length of pull. We've talked about this before in the past for shooting passive behind night vision, and just did that little bit of extra length, especially as we start to add gear on. It's nice to have that extra adjustability. So we tend to lean more towards that A5 system, and being able to just go with a typical normal green spring co-spring in here, and then like a H1 buffer, and still shooting it suppressed and the ejection staying consistent. So I don't have additional mass of like a H2 or H3 or something. Now that's going to be determined on the suppressor that you're running. The suppressors that we're running like Huxworks flow through cans, the RC3, reduced back pressure, and and the Griffin Armament can, which are also reduced back pressure. So we lean more towards those types of cans now. That's what we run a lot of. So easily getting away with something like a Springco green spring in it and an H1 buffer, and just a very soft shooting, accurate system.
What was insane to me is the fact that obviously this is a testament also to the the low back pressure cans, but we were having almost a very similar ejection pattern, suppressed and unsuppressed. And then when we ran an RC2 on it, the ejection pattern was at 3 o'clock. All right, so now I've got M193 again. We're gonna see how it does suppressed. I'm running RC2 on here. One of the things I want you guys to notice is also the gassing, how it ejects, what the ejection pattern looks like, and then also we'll see what the accuracy is with standard 55 grain ball. All right, so we're gonna see what it looks like with the group. This is 55 grain. Understand one of the things, guys, to keep in mind is also whenever you're running suppressed, you're heating up the end of that barrel. You have the breech of the barrel and the end of the barrel when you're running suppressed that gets hot. Usually the center of the barrel is gonna be the coolest section, but we're gonna see what that group looks like with suppressed M193. All right, we actually got one flyer, but actually that's pretty darn good. Like, guys, we're also talking like standard ball ammo, like not your match grade stuff, like your standard ball ammo, and that is an acceptable group, man. So, all right.
Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, where you have a can that has a good amount of back pressure, you know, and you typically need to kind of slow it down. And that's really where, you know, I tried preaching this, and along with a lot of other guys in the community, gassing your system correctly at your barrel and your gas tube, okay? Starting there, and then having a properly matched bolt carrier group to go along with that. So we're not having to deal with things like adjustable gas systems. You know, we're not spending time of needing to do it. Now they do offer it. So like if you know, Roscoe does offer an adjustable gas block. So if you want to go adjustable and you want to cut back on the gas even more, and it's like, hey, I only want this thing to run suppressed. That's all I want it to do. And I want it to be the softest shooting suppressed system as you possibly can get away with, then by all means you have that ability to do that. But for us, we bounce back and forth between running suppressed and unsuppressed so often. It's just we want to take the can off and it be reliable both ways.
Correct.
Okay, and that's really what we are looking for, is finding that fine balance. We have plenty of guns that are tuned specifically for shooting suppressed, and they're lovely. We love it. It's fantastic. But the downside is once we take the can off, it doesn't run. So we wanted that reliability, and that kind of falls into our mindset when it comes to, you know, being prepared as a citizen, and having a reliable, accurate system that kind of bridges some gaps between, you know, like more of a SPR role and a general purpose rifle role. And that's where that 16-inch also, when they approached us about this, we were like, oh man, it'd be really cool to do a 14.5 or like a 13.9. That's, you know, we kind of like that length. But then it's like, well, the 16-inch, we can get a little bit more velocity out of 77 grain.
Yeah, and some more dwell time.
And some more dwell time. And still, you know, kind of, you know, bridging the two gaps between a general purpose rifle and an SPR rifle together. And I think this barrel, you know, I'm obviously biased because our name's on the side of it. But I think that this is where this barrel kind of really falls in for the individual that's trying to accomplish that. It's like, hey, I don't have the budget for an SPR, and I don't really have the budget for a GPR. And I want both of them to work. I want both, but I can't really afford both. So here's a barrel that you can basically, you know, kind of bridge that gap with.
And so that's kind of leads me into the next portion, is application. You know, I think, like you were saying, I think this is going to be that general purpose rifle barrel that really has a good, strong emphasis on accuracy and distance and velocity and soft felt recoil. So as far as application, what would you think would be the best application for this barrel?
So we've ran this thing anywhere from just a red dot and magnifier on top of it to running it with something like a 2 to 10, and even a 3, you know, for accuracy testing, a 3 to 15, you know. Honestly, at the end of the day, however you want to build it, you know. We have, you know, you guys have seen in our video, our Night Force NX8 video with low power variable. That rifle that was primarily featured running that optic the entire time was that NX8. So that was part of the, you know, the testing process. One of, you know, as we're you know, testing this barrel, we were like, hey, we're going to test this optic too. We're already going to put a lot of rounds through it. Let's throw it in this gun and shoot it and see what happens with it. So it gives you, honestly, you can go any direction with it, in my personal opinion. And that's kind of the beauty behind it. And I know, you know, you've seen there for a long time in the market where people started steering away from 16-inch barrels. You know, they started going to, and I think a lot of that had to do, though, primarily, it's like, okay, well, I got a 16-inch barrel, and it was just like the typical normal government profile barrel. So it's like I got all of this barrel length, but no added accuracy.
Or a carbine link gas.
Right, and a carbine link gas. You know, I have this super punchy gun that's not fun to shoot, and, you know, and that was what was offered. I mean, that's just, you know, the majority, as far as what the market was being covered with, was, you know, okay, 16-inch barrels, carbine length, you know, even some, you know, mid-length gas systems, but they only had the mindset of, you know, the typical mil-spec type accuracy. Like, hey, let me be able to shoot 3 to 6 inch groups at 100 yards.
Right.
So, and that's where, you know, having, you know, a company like Roscoe coming out with a barrel like this, you know, gives you that, starts making you lean, in my opinion, starts making me want to lean back more towards the 16-inch barrel, because now I have a 16-inch barrel that gives me the accuracy. I'm all about, hey, I want to be able to engage targets at some distance, okay? And give me a barrel that, when I say engage targets at distance, I want to be able to engage smaller targets at distance. I want to be more pinpoint accurate at that distance. It's something that I strive for in my own skill set. So that's something that I work on quite often. So this 16-inch barrel gives me the ability to carry that velocity that I need with my preferred round, like a 77, you know, Sierra Match King bullet. And then it's gassed relatively well, and it's a good balance between a, you know, a straight heavier Mark 12 type profile and a fighting barrel. You know, having that general purpose like a fighting rifle. So.
Yeah, I mean, we've been blown away by the performance of the barrel. The gas length was super legit. And honestly, what really shocked me was the amount of ammo that it could eat and accurize, and also the soft felt recoil between suppression and unsuppressed, and also the ability to stretch rounds out over distance to 800 yards, you know, and be able to engage those targets like that with accuracy. So that was always, you know, pretty fascinating for us. And it was obviously kind of an easier decision too, to work with a company that legit cares about the shooter and the shooters themselves. So at the end of the day, we've told you guys before, we are looking out for you, the end user, because us as shooters, you know, we are looking out for you guys to make sure that, you know, you're not being sold witch oil or snake oil or whatever it's called, but you're getting things that work, that give the biggest bang for your buck, because right now the economy is not the best. So, you know, trying to stretch that dollar is a harder and harder thing to do these days. So, did you have any final thoughts over the barrel?
I would just say, once again, kind of leaning back towards, you know, Roscoe happens to be a manufacturer that is, you know, they're providing barrels to civilians. Like that's what they do. You know, like they manufacture a lot of barrels. There's a ton of people that I know within our community that are running Roscoe manufacturing barrels. So like what Eric was saying, like that was a key. First off, like if we're going to work with a manufacturer, we want their focus to be on the civilian market. And that's something that they do. And also, hey, we want to work with a company, and I can't stress this enough, we want to work with a company that they're shooters. Like they go out and train. Those guys go, they shoot their stuff. The other thing that I like about them is when it came to this, they didn't just send us one barrel. They didn't just say, hey, here's one barrel. They sent us a relatively large sample size. I was expecting, honestly, when we talked about this, that we were just going to get one barrel in the mail. And we had multiples, okay? So we had two, and then it was like, okay, well, hey, we got some more barrels up. Let me send you another couple barrels. And it also encouraged us to get this barrel out into the hands of people that, you know, are trusted shooters that Eric and I train with, that are like, hey, we can trust these guys' opinion. You know, Eric and I, we don't just rely on what we get back when we're shooting something. We go to our community and we ask them questions, so you know, so we can bring that information back to you, because we're just two dudes. Like that's it. We can only do so much, but if we can get a larger sample size out there into the market when we're testing something, that's key. And I think that, you know, Roscoe obviously gave us that opportunity to be able to do that, which was really, really cool. The communication back and forth between the two companies, between us and them, has always been fantastic. Our relationship has been really, really good. And then the feedback that we got back from those users. And then also Roscoe did the same thing. They sent this barrel out to other shooters in the market that they knew that they were going to test this barrel and get their feedback. So it wasn't just us. So I know, you know, there's going to be somebody in the comments that says, well, you know, of course they're biased. It's got their name on it. Yes, I am biased because it does have our name on it. But I'm not going to put my name on something unless it works.
And we stand by it.
And we stand by it. So we're very, very picky on our product, and we typically always come back to you at some point in time and give you updates on videos or product that we've done before in the past, where maybe it was something that was good at that particular point in time, and it, you know, and then in the end it ended up not being after we got to a certain point in round count. These barrels, we've put a extensive amount of rounds through them. And you know, it's been fantastic, and I'm super proud to actually have our name on it. and super proud to actually work with a company like Roscoe.
Yeah.
To the point in time, like virtually every gun I have now has a Roscoe barrel in it, because I
Yeah.
like working with companies that are shooter mindset first individuals, and that's key, because even if there happen to be a problem there, because they're shooters and they're consumers themselves, and they are living life on a budget just like we are, they're going to make it happen. They're going to fix it for you. They stand behind their product also. So they're not going to be a company that's hard to get a hold of. You can get a hold of them. So, but yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait for you guys to get this in your hands. I can't wait for you to come back to us and comment your experiences with it. I can't wait to see some of these in the class.
Yeah.
Some of our classes, especially our scope carbine class. Seeing some of those in it.
So that's actually a great way, if you guys want to support the channel, a great way to support the channel is to come train with us. Sign up for a scope carbine class or one of our pistol or rifle courses and or night vision courses as we go later into the year. Also go to the website and pick up something, whether it's a class or pick up a sticker pack or a t-shirt. You actually automatically get entered into a weekly giveaway anytime that you buy something on the website. So every week we do a giveaway, we do an announcement live every week about some products that we give away or some things that are even not available in the store or from other manufacturers that we will give away to you guys, just to kind of honor your guys' commitment to supporting the channel. All right, so before we step off, guys, I want to give you kind of a little passage out of the book of Romans, and I'm just going to read this passage, and it's about love and what that truly means. So we're going to be in Romans chapter 12, verse 9, and I'm going to read till verse 21. So it says here, "Love must be sincere, hate what is evil, and cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer. Share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice, and mourn with those who mourn. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. Do not be conceited. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, 'It is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord.' On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." Guys, we live in a industry and even in a world where everybody is always looking out for themselves, or you always says, "I'm going to get back at that dude," or "I'm going to get back at that company," or "I'm going to get, I'm going to get my revenge," or "I'm going to get my justice." And God calls on us to be loving, whether there's somebody that's in need, whether that's someone who's, in a bad position. Always be looking for ways to love that person through your actions by actually doing something without looking for anything in return. And that's going to give you such a big reward. I mean, I heard that slang is like, how can, if someone wants to fight you at the bar and you buy them a beer, how can they be mad at you? So always be looking at ways to be able to give and to be able to continue to be humble, especially in an industry where ego and pride is such a big and important thing. But what can some people do if they don't know about the Lord?
Yeah, so definitely reach out to us if you're curious. I encourage you to reach out to us. Shoot us an email at team@barrelandhatchet.com or roy@barrelandhatchet.com. If you're curious and you don't know, or maybe you've kind of stepped away and kind of been a little bit lost for a little while, and you're kind of curious and you have some questions, or you know what, you just need somebody to talk to. Reach out to us, because we'd love to talk to you. We'd also love to send you a Bible, that have helped us through different times, and it kind of reminds me, talking about this sometimes, is finding the calm in the storm. So I encourage you guys, if you pull up your phone, whatever it may be, read Matthew 8:23 through 27, and Jesus and his disciples in the storm, and finding that calm in the storm, and realizing that finding your identity in Christ, finding finding your identity in Christ, that how relieving it will be, guys. We all have struggles, and we all have those times where those waves are really beating us down in life. So being able to give that and that trust to our Lord, and understand that He's going to relieve that from you. So if you guys have any questions whatsoever, reach out to us. If we don't know the answer, we'll find the answer for you. So this is something that we're very passionate about, guys, and we love to hear from you guys.
So remember, if you have problems or troubles, always send us a prayer request. Continue to cast your cares and your anxieties and all those stresses on Jesus. He is there to save you and to be able to remove that from your life and to bring you fulfillment and to give you a purpose. And also remember to invest in yourself. You are the asset, and let us all train to be eternal assets for the kingdom of heaven and also for each other. We'll see you on the next one.